You weren't even planning to buy anything. You opened your phone for just a minute, maybe to check the weather, maybe to answer a message. 20 minutes later, there's a package on its way to your house. And the strange part isn't what you bought. It's that, for a few minutes, you actually felt better. Not because your paycheck got bigger, not because your problems disappeared, just better. Then, a day or two later, that feeling quietly fades. And before long, you're scrolling again. So why does this happen? Why can spending money feel like emotional relief, even when we already know it usually doesn't last? The answer has less to do with the product, and much more to do with what was happening inside you before you clicked buy. Because many purchases don't begin with wanting an object. They begin with wanting a different feeling. Think about a normal weekday. Work dragged on longer than expected. Your boss added one more task before you left. Traffic took forever. Dinner still isn't ready. Your phone is full of unread messages. Nothing terrible happened, but your mind feels heavy. Later that night, you're lying on the couch. You open an online store. You aren't searching for happiness. You're just looking. At least that's what it feels like. A new pair of shoes, a kitchen gadget, a hoodie, a gaming accessory. Something catches your attention, and almost without realizing it, your mood starts changing. Nothing has arrived yet. Nothing belongs to you yet. But somehow, the day already feels a little lighter. That's an important clue, because the emotional lift often starts long before the package reaches your door. Sometimes it begins the moment your brain starts imagining a different version of tomorrow. Maybe you'll finally feel more organized. Maybe you'll look more confident. Maybe your apartment will feel more complete. Maybe life will feel a little less repetitive. Notice what's happening. The product hasn't changed your life. Your imagination has. And that's why scrolling itself can sometimes feel surprisingly comforting. You're borrowing emotions from a future that hasn't happened yet. For a few minutes, your attention shifts away from today's stress toward tomorrow's possibilities. That shift can feel incredibly rewarding, especially after a difficult day. But then something interesting happens. The package arrives. You open it. You try it. You smile. Maybe you even think, that was worth it. For a little while, then your brain quietly adjusts. The new thing becomes just another thing. The shoes become your regular shoes. The coffee machine becomes your normal coffee machine. The expensive headphones become your everyday headphones. What felt exciting on Tuesday can feel ordinary by next month. Not because you made a bad purchase, but because our minds naturally adapt to things that become familiar. And once that excitement settles, something uncomfortable often returns. Not the product, the feeling you were trying to escape before you bought it. Which leads to a question most people never stop to ask. If the purchase wasn't really fixing the feeling, what exactly was it doing? That's where the story becomes much more interesting. Because that purchase may not have been solving the problem. It may have been interrupting it. Think about what happens during those few minutes before you check out. You're comparing options, reading reviews, choosing colors, picturing where you'll use it. Your attention is completely somewhere else. The stressful meeting from earlier, gone for a moment. That awkward conversation, in the background. The uncertainty about money, temporarily quieter. Shopping doesn't always change your situation, but it can change what your mind is focusing on. And sometimes, that shift is what feels rewarding. The purchase becomes less about owning something, and more about escaping something. That's why the people can buy the exact same item for completely different reasons. One person replaces a broken blender, the other buys it after a lonely weekend. Same product, very different emotional story. And this is where it starts getting expensive. Because if your brain learns that spending money creates temporary emotional relief, it can begin suggesting shopping whenever those feelings come back. Feeling bored? Open a shopping app. Feeling stressed? Browse for deals. Feeling unappreciated? Treat yourself. Feeling lonely? Order something. Notice the pattern. The emotion changes. The product changes. but the habit stays the same. Over time, your brain can quietly connect emotional discomfort with spending, not because it's irrational, because it remembers what seemed to help before. Even if that relief only lasted a little while, then something even more surprising can happen. You earn more money, your paycheck gets bigger, you expect the habit to disappear. Sometimes, it doesn't. Because the habit was never built around income, it was built around emotion. A larger paycheck may give you more room to spend, but it doesn't automatically change what you're spending to feel. That's why some people continue impulse buying after raises, while others become more intentional without earning any more at all. The difference isn't only how much money they have, it's whether they recognize the feeling showing up before the purchase. And here's the part many people never hear. There's nothing unusual about wanting relief. Everyone looks for it in different ways. Some people scroll social media, some binge watch shows, some snack, some clean the house, some shop. The goal isn't to feel guilty every time you buy something. Buying things you genuinely need or truly enjoy isn't the problem. The problem begins when purchases quietly become your favorite emotional escape. Because escapes have a strange habit, they usually ask to be repeated. The relief gets shorter, the spending gets easier, and the original feeling is still waiting when the excitement wears off. So what's one small change that actually helps? The next time you suddenly feel an urge to buy something, don't start by asking, "Can I afford this?" Pause for just a few seconds first. Ask yourself something different. What happened today that made this feel so important right now? That single question changes everything, because it shifts your attention from the product back to the emotion. Maybe you'll still decide to buy it. That's completely okay. But now, you're making the decision with awareness, instead of letting the feeling make it for you. And that's often where healthier money habits begin. Not with perfect self-control, with understanding. The strange thing is, people often think they're trying to fill their shopping cart, when many times, they're really trying to fill a feeling. So I'm curious, what emotion do you think most often pushes people toward impulse purchases? Stress, boredom, loneliness, or something else entirely? Because once you understand that answer, the next question becomes even more important. Why does earning more money often fail to make people feel financially secure? That's exactly where this conversation continues. Because the same emotional patterns that influence spending can quietly make a bigger paycheck feel smaller than you expected. I'll see you in that video.